Okay, now let's turn our attention to the practical application. In this case study, we will see that choosing between an electric and a gasoline vehicles involves trade-off between the cost and the carbon footprint. System thinking enables us to evaluate these consumer choices not just on an individual scale, but also on their broader impact on carbon emission reduction goals. So why are EVs being promoted worldwide? There are three key reasons. First, reducing petroleum imports. Second, reducing CO2 emissions. Third, improving air quality. So, while EV offers many benefits, several key barriers still slow down their widespread adoption. First is a higher upfront cost. EV often have a higher purchase price compared to the traditional gasoline vehicles, mainly because of the cost of battery. Although total cost of ownership might be lower in the long run, the initial price tag remains a hurdle for many consumers. Second, range anxiety. This refers to the fear of running out of battery before reaching a charging point. Third, limited charging infrastructure. Unlike gasoline stations, EV charging points, especially fast chargers, are not yet widely available in many regions. This lack of convenient access further discourages adoption. One of the most frequently asked questions, are EVs really greener? Well, it really depends on how you define green. If we only look at the driving process, then yes, EV produce zero tailpipe emission, meaning they don't directly emit CO2 or other air pollutants when operating. However, the story changes once we consider the full life cycle. This includes how the electricity used to charge the EV is generated. In many regions, that electricity still comes from fossil fuel, like coal or natural gas, which do emit greenhouse gas during the generation. So while EVs are locally clean, their indirect emission depends heavily on the grid energy mix. This cartoon shown in this slide illustrates the point. An EV that runs completely on electricity might still be indirectly powered by the coal-fired power plant. So while EVs are a cleaner solution overall, real environmental benefits comes when we pair them with the renewable electricity resources. One way to determine the cleanness of EVs is through the life cycle analysis. And LCOE is commonly adopted to compare the life cycle environmental impact per distance driven among the different types of the vehicle technology. A full vehicle life cycle consists of 4 stages: vehicle production, fuel consumption, and end of life. If only considering the emission from the fuel used to power the vehicle, it is called the well-to-wheel WTW analysis or fuel life cycle analysis. WTW is divided into well-to-tank and the tank-to-wheel. WTT considers the fuel supply from resource recovery to delivery to the vehicle tank. TTW describes the vehicle from the tank to the wheel, meaning the use of fuel is the vehicle and the emission during driving. Moreover, since emissions from vehicle maintenance and end-of-life disposal are relatively negligible compared to the emissions from vehicle production and operation. Let's now turn to another common question. Are EVs actually more expensive than gasoline vehicles? At first glance, the price tag might suggest so. EVs often have a higher upfront cost, which can make them seem less affordable. But this price tag only reflects a small part of the full picture. In fact, many studies have found that EVs have lower operating costs over time, thanks to the lower electricity costs, fewer maintenance needs, and the government incentive in some places. Compared to internal combustion engine vehicles, EVs can save a lot of fuel and the repairs. To really assess affordability, we need to look at the TCO. This approach captures both capital costs and operating costs over the vehicle life cycle, which gives consumers a more complete, realistic view of what they are actually paying, and often EVs come out ahead. Let's break down what it actually includes when it comes to owning a vehicle. TCO consists of three major components: purchase cost. These are the upfront costs, including the vehicle price, any purchase-related tax and fees, and also any purchase subsidy. The second, O&M cost, short for operation and maintenance. This includes fuel or electricity expenses, insurance premiums, repairs and maintenance cost, and recurring expenses like license and fuel taxes. Third, resale value. This is what you can expect to get back when you eventually sell the vehicles. Altogether, these elements give us a more holistic view of the real cost of owning the vehicles, far beyond the sticker price. In Taiwan, the transportation sectors account for 40% of carbon emission, most of which come from the road transportation. Taiwan has the highest scooter ownership in the world, with more than 610 scooters per 1,000 people, which is why we select Taiwanese scooters for our LCA and the TCO case study. The image in the bottom left corner shows the typical scene during the commute hours on Taipei Bridge, highlighting the importance of scooter as a vital means of transportation for the people living in Taiwan. However, the resultant local air pollution and the carbon emission are also the significant issues that cannot be ignored. To address the negative environmental impacts of traditional gasoline motorcycles, the government continues to raise emission standards and provide the purchase subsidies for new motorcycles, including the latest gasoline motorcycle that comply with Phase 7 emission standards and the electric motorcycles. In March 2022, the National Development Council announced Taiwan 2050 Net Zero Emission Pathway and Strategy, which includes prohibition on the sales of gasoline vehicles nationwide starting in 2040, including the gasoline motorcycles or scooters. Let's now take a closer look at the unique charging and the swapping environment for electric scooters in Taiwan. There are two dominant models in use. First, battery swap model, which account for roughly 90% of the market. Under this model, user lease the battery through a monthly pricing plan, separate from vehicle purchase. Instead of waiting for the battery to charge, users swap depleted batteries for fully charged ones at designated battery swapping station. These stations are densely distributed across the urban areas, offering the convenience and reducing range anxiety for users. Gogoro is the key player in this space. Charging models, which account for about 10%. In this model, users may either lease or buy the battery. Charging can be done at public charging stations or even at home. However, charging stations are still relatively sparse, which can impact the convenience and adoption. Now, let's take a quick look at some of the top-selling scooter models in Taiwan. Just to give you the sense of what's actually on the market, we have categorized them into three groups: gasoline scooters on the left. These models remain very popular among the consumers due to the price and familiarity. The second in the middle column, which is electric scooter. Here we show the two most popular electric models, which is Gogoro S2, which operates under the battery swapping model. And another one is Ionix S7, a charging-based model by Kymco's EV sub-brand. This model offers the different battery usage schemes that we introduced earlier. The third on the right are light electric scooter, which has less than 5 horsepower. So across these three categories, consumers in Taiwan are given multiple options, not just between gasoline and electric, but also within electric, between charging versus swapping, and the full versus light power. This variety plays a big role in how people evaluate trade-offs between cost, convenience, and environmental impact. In the following next 2 slides, we are going to highlight some key findings from our published study on the carbon and the cost trade-off of different scooter models in Taiwan. If you are interested in the full methodology and the detailed result, feel free to scan the QR code on the right to access the complete paper. And this slide presents the comparison of 156 scooter models sold in Taiwan, mapping their TCO per kilometers against their life cycle carbon emission. Here we clearly see that the cost carbon trade-off occurs when switching across the different powertrain technology. Gasoline scooters cluster in the upper middle region, while electric models, particularly battery swapping ones, sit in the lower right corner, offering lower carbon emission but generally higher cost. Interestingly, within the same powertrain group, such as among the Phase 7 gasoline scooters or e-scooters, models with lower emissions also tend to cost less, meaning consumers do not necessarily face trade-off within the same category. For example, the Yamaha Jog stands out as a highly fuel-efficient and affordable internal combustion engine scooters, even nearly meeting Taiwanese 2040 carbon target. However, none of the gasoline models meet the long-term 2050 net zero goal, which is a benchmark only achievable through electrification and a decarbonized grid. Now, let's look at the detailed breakdown of cost and emission by scooter category. In the top one, we can see how gasoline scooters generate most of their life cycle emissions during the fuel usage phase, while e-scooters shift emission upstream, mainly from the battery and the electricity production. In the bottom chart, although e-scooters have lower emission, they come with a higher ownership cost, primarily due to the battery subscription plan. Even after applying current government subsidies, the TCO of e-scooters remain higher than gasoline ones, especially for models with the battery swapping mode. This underscores a policy gap. Existing subsidies are not enough to close the cost gap and encourage large-scale e-scooter adoption. Without the enhanced financial support or broader low-carbon electricity coverage, Taiwan may struggle to meet its 2050 climate targets. From this research, we can clearly see how system thinking plays a vital role in understanding the complex trade-offs between cost and carbon. It also demonstrates why learning and applying techno-economic analysis is essential, not only for evaluating green technology, but also for designing more effective policies and accelerating the transition towards sustainability. Alright, let's wrap up of our system thinking unit and also the final unit of this course module. Through the case of two-wheeler choices, we have seen how carbon and cost trade-offs are influenced by more than just the vehicle themselves. They are shaped by policy, user habits, and the energy system. This underscores why system thinking is important and why learning techno-economic analysis is so important for advancing green technology. Thank you all for following along. I hope this course module has helped you build a solid foundation for tackling real-world sustainability challenge. Take care and all the best on your green engineering journey. Bye-bye.